I suddenly could feel everything in creation was one. I could feel the trees, the grass, the ball. Everything was one, and it was vibrating. With love, you could feel the vibration of love in everything. And it was the most miraculous thing I'd ever experienced, obviously. It's like incredible. I would look at a tree and I could feel love. I could feel love coming from the tree. When I looked at my parents, I saw love.
Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And today I have Dr. Kirk Laman with us. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me on today. I'm very happy to be here and get to share this message. I think everyone's going to resonate with, I hope.
Absolutely. And for the people who like to remember you, this is your show. And on my website, there is a form and you can suggest me guests to invite. You can suggest me questions you want me to ask. So I'm trying to do exactly that. So if you have any questions or guest suggestions, I follow your guidance. And that's what we're doing here today. And today is a subject which is particularly close to my heart. I'm sorry for the pun, but I promise this will be only one I'm going to make today. But actually, it is something that is super important for all of us, and everyone who's been years of spiritual process have come across one or the other things that we're going to hear today from Dr. Laman. So I think it's going to be an interesting one for either for beginners or for accomplished spiritual seekers. There is something of valuable to be learned here. So if you please be so kind or just maybe start with a little of a background, some introduction, before we go deeper into the things that we want to talk about today.
Sure. I'm a cardiologist. I see patients every day in the office with various cardiovascular problems. But about 20 years ago, I was led on a spiritual journey down a path of really connecting more deeply to my heart. It was the mystical path of Sufism. And I went back for 3 years of postgraduate training, learning how to help people deal with the emotional issues as well as their physical issues. And for many years, I actually had a practice doing that where I would do cardiology and I would help people emotionally. Now I just practice straight cardiology and occasionally I'll do this healing work. But what we discovered is that people's hearts are suffering. There's a lot of emotional stuff that actually affects the physical body. When you have deep trauma and sadness, you get heart disease. They're connected. They're not, they're not separate. So heart disease and emotional issues are linked together. And I truly believe that by working more deeply at the heart level, that you can really learn to help physical illness. And I've got hundreds of patients I could share stories with who have done this, but also you really can learn to find inner peace. So I have a book coming out in a couple of days called Inner Peace Now, in which we teach this technique called the remembrance. The remembrance, people say, well, what are you remembering? Well, you're basically remembering your own light inside your heart. You're connecting to the source of divine light that lives inside of you. And when you do this technique, it's organic. You learn to get calmer, you get more peaceful. And I'd love to tell people about the story in the book of a man I worked with for about a year. His name was Gabriel Aziz, how he had severe anxiety. And over the course of, I'd say 15 sessions, he was dramatically better. So that's kind of my background, traditional medicine with an emotional healing kind of aspect and how they're interlinked together. And I have a number of other books out, which reveal about stress and how stress affects the body. But mostly, I believe that connecting to the heart is key to true healing.
Right. So that's a wonderful introduction. And I can see already several subjects coming up that people need clarification. And I think people should know more about. Of course, there is the whole concept of Sufism. Not everybody is familiar with it. So there's a lot of information out there, or non-information, so to say. So I think it would be very helpful to a little bit look into this technique from its historic background. And then you said that you have some stories you want to share, and I think our audience is always very helpful if they have some real life application and some real stories from your everyday to see how it manifests. And of course, it would be great to know more about the technique itself, how it's practiced, how it is performed. And basically, I would leave it to your own choosing if you would like first to introduce the technique, or if you would like to first go into the history and a little bit talk about the world of Sufis.
Well, I think, the technique itself, maybe people want to get right to the meat of the matter here, but the technique itself is to get comfortable, and the sound ah in every culture is a universal sound of relaxation. That's the universal sound of relaxation. So this sound is basically how we connect to the heart. We basically sit quietly. We spend some time getting our muscles relaxed and throwing off the stress of our muscles. And then we just get a set of beads or some type of counting device to keep our mind off of it. I repeat this ah sound, taking it deeply into the heart. And, it sounds kind of simple, almost too simple for people. How can this really help you? But what you find is that when you take a breath, as Indian people have shown us, the breathing is essential for stress reduction and connecting to your heart. As you take a breath in and bring it down into the heart begins to expand. The heart relaxes, and you connect to that part of yourself that's beyond the mind. And when you connect to that part of yourself beyond the mind, that's where healing happens. Now, if you're more religious, we can use various words that have an ah sound. Some people are religious, like to use the word God, or, some people use hu, which is an Aramaic form of using the word. But, but the ah sound by itself is enough. You just want to bring that relaxation into the heart over and over. So you do that for about, maybe get a set of beads and do it 100 times, do it like 300 or 400 times. And then you focus on your heart, and you just keep your attention in your heart, and you listen. You listen to what your heart will tell you. There's a really good doctor by the name of Bernie Siegel. He's from the 80s and 90s, but he wrote a number of books where he was a cancer surgeon, where people did not know they had cancer, and they began getting messages from their body, from their heart, that something was wrong. So our heart has an intelligence. It has an intelligence beyond thought. And this intelligence will guide you. But you have to get quiet, and you have to listen. And so using the ah technique allows you to connect to your heart more fully. And as you connect, and then you sit and you listen, many wondrous things happen. Many wondrous things happen. I mean, I can't describe it. I've been on this mystical path for 30 years now. I can give you some of my experiences. I try not to talk too much about them. But in the beginning of my book, I describe one of the experiences. So it's really the connection to your heart that matters, not the mind. The mind is good. You can change things with the mind, change your thinking, and that works. But to really clear out emotional debris, all debris that people pick up from sadness and loneliness and life struggle, that debris gets clouding the heart. It clouds the heart. We say that the heart has veils, that these veils prevent us from connecting to the deeper light within and the peace. And so by removing these veils, by reflecting and getting in touch with this ah breath, you can actually remove this debris and find peace quickly. It doesn't take long. And some people, I've worked with them 2 sessions, and they're healed in 2 sessions.
Right. So, and you mentioned it, I guess now it's going to resonate with a lot of the audience who have either they looked into chanting or sound bath or into the whole world of chakras. So it's just everywhere that as you said, and even in the old Catholic schools, when you pray to Maria and you sing the Ave Maria, is apparently supposed to heal heart conditions. So even the Catholic had a whole list of certain prayers that's supposed to help with certain conditions. And of course, the Chinese medicine can sometimes give you vocal practices as a therapy. So this frequency healing is, of course, all over the planet. And
yeah. I mean, think of the sound. Okay, let's just practice a little bit here and give people an example. If I say the sound, I notice that it resonates in my nose. Oh, in the throat. Ah, down here. So the ah sound, the frequency resonates down in the heart region. Oh, if we take it deeper. Oh, it's down here in the heart. So this is an organic technique that's put into our body by our creator. We didn't create it. It's part of us. It's a simple part of us. So when you say, ah, it goes into the heart region. It relaxes the heart region. There's a really interesting book out called The Heart Math Connection. Math like numbers, M-A-T-H, heart math. But they did research in the 1980s, and what they discovered was that in and around the heart, there's over 70,000 neurons, that the heart has a neural connection, even more than the part of the back of the brain, the amygdala, that controls our emotion. There's more neurons in the heart region. And it was their feeling that, and this has been true from Sufi masters and mystical Sufi people, that the heart is really the center of who we are. Our emotional state comes from the heart region. When you think about what you feel when you love somebody, when you start thinking about, oh, I love my mother, you don't feel it up in your head. You feel it in here. So we believe that the people that I've been trained with, we believe that these bad experiences, these debris, clouds the heart, that covers the heart like veils. When you're born, the heart is pure. The heart is completely pure. But over the course of life and struggle and negative this, negative that, criticism, pain, you build up layer after layer of veils that cloud the heart. And so the technique of the remembrance. So when you remember, you're remembering your original light that's in there, that's hidden by the veil. That's what you're remembering. You do the remembrance, and it begins to pull away these veils, strip them away. And more you begin to feel peace and joy. The more you do it, the more it helps you. And, I've used this technique in hundreds of people for, like I said, in the beginning, I had a healing practice. I still did cardiology part-time, but I had a healing practice. I would see 20 people a week doing this technique, teaching this techniques to them. And I had one woman who was from Pennsylvania. She was about 35 years old, and she had been having heart racing. She'd heard about me from a article I'd written for a magazine. And so she somehow got a hold of me and called me on the phone. She was from Boston. I lived in Michigan. And she basically, it's 500 miles away. She basically said, I've been having heart racing. Nobody knows what's causing it. And it's just getting worse and worse. And she was anxious all the time. And she wanted to know if I could help her. And I said, well, I'll do what I can. I don't have any guarantees. And I said, well, why are you anxious? And she said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm anxious. I've been to psychotherapists my whole life. I've been under counseling. I've seen psychics. She listed like 7 or 8 practitioners she'd seen, and she hadn't discovered why she was anxious. And so we agreed to do sessions together and work on her tachycardia. So I did the typical medical thing. I got her medical records to find out what was going on. She had what was called a supraventricular tachycardia. That's a very fast heart rate that comes abnormally from the upper chambers of the heart. And she was going like 170 beats a minute when she had it. She'd have it once a week, and then so it was once a day. She was really incapacitated. So we sat down, I, guided her in some relaxation techniques, and then we began doing this session together. And in the middle of the session, what came up is she connected more and more fully to the heart. Her heart opened, and she began seeing scenes where she had been in a closet. That was one of her things about anxiety. She always got anxious around closet. But when she was about 8 or 9, one of her cousins or a next door neighbor had pulled her into the closet and attempted to assault her sexually. Now, nothing actually happened, like, but, he was on top of her and trying to get her clothes off, and she got away from him. And she had repressed this for 30 years or 25 years. She had repressed this. Psychotherapy and all the other techniques, maybe it had primed her to the point that she was ready to let go of it. But in one session, she discovered why she was anxious. And that by itself, by uncovering that issue, released it. And she was 90% better. The tachycardia went away in one session. And then she came back for a second session, and we got some more work. She went back to the same memory. And after that, she was totally clear. She healed, in 2 sessions. So the thing I want to say about this, and what I talk about in my book, Inner Peace Now, is this technique can be transformational quickly. If you commit to it, it can be transformational in a short time. And we have, in the back of the book, I give a list of about 5 or 6 healers who went to the University of Spirituality and Sufism who do this technique. So if you really want to, have someone help you with this, you can call them up, and, they can find people who can do the technique. So that's just one story of a transformational. And then why did it work so quickly? No, I don't know. Maybe all the other healing sessions that, brought her the point to a head, and I was just the last one to help her. I don't know what it is, but that's not been my experience. My experience has been is that this works quickly, these sessions, and doing it yourself can work quickly.
Right, of course. Thank you so much. This is a very inspiring story, I guess, for many out there. But there's a couple of minor questions I want to pick out here and there.
Sure.
And one thing you said is that I know that you like to do it in a group, these kind of practices, that you want to do it in a circle. Can you a little bit tell us, I think that I heard correctly when you explained it, is there a special meaning in it, doing it together with others? What can you give some background on that?
No, usually we do them one-on-one. These sessions are the sessions I do, or, and the sessions these healers do are one-on-one sessions. We're not usually doing them in a group. They can be done in a group, but they're more effective one-on-one. But the whole point of the book and the technique and teaching the technique is to reach out to people so they can do it themselves, that this learning how to connect to your heart is what really is essential. It's a heart connection. You got to make a heart connection yourself. And, it's like Eastern religion and meditation. You got to sit down and do it. You got to spend 15, 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, some amount of time where it's quiet and, there's no distractions, and just connect your heart, and then learn how to listen. You've got to listen to your own heart, and it will tell you, it will tell you. And so, we don't really do it in a group as per se. It's more one-on-one. And the healers that I have listed back, those are one-on-one people.
I thought that you said it's part of a spiritual circle, that you're doing this with others in the group as a more spiritual practice coming further from the therapeutical elements. I think there's also, moving further, a spiritual side to this. So it's not only an application for the intimate healing of the people, so the first big step that we just quickly talked about, and I'm sure we're going to come back to that, but it goes even further. It has another level, a spiritual level, if I understand this correctly.
Sure. Certainly. So the beginning step is like to say, okay. I'm been on the mystical Sufi path for 25 years. Let's see, 40, 60, almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years the next month. Been on the mystical Sufi path. Sufism is the path of love. Okay. It's the path of learning how to connect more deeply to the divine through these practices. So we would say, you could say or if you're religious, you could say, or spiritual, you could say Allah, or Allahum, or Jehovah. You could say anything that has the sound, and that will all work to connect to the heart. But, to try to reach out to a broad audience, in my book, I don't put it to be religion. I'm not trying to teach religion to people, because this opens the door for anybody who's suffering. We want to help the people who are suffering, the people who have anxiety and loneliness and sadness. I want to help them, And then if they are spiritually inclined and want to move further, sure, we can direct them to the more spiritual aspect, the mystical aspects that are even greater. Do you want me? Did you read the introduction to my book about you want me to talk about that experience I had when what brought me to this, or?
I did not read the introduction to your book, but I'm quite familiar with Sufism, generally speaking, because I teach more than 30 years meditation and chanting, and I'm quite personally read up on Sufism. So that's why I just wanted to little bit show the people there's this ladder that starts on what you are now working on, what the book is about, the real world and the applications, and we will have enough time to talk about it. I just wanted to show people that there's another level on top of it that you have been exploring for a long time.
Sure. So when I was 18, I was spiritual. I was a Christian. I was going to church every week, and I had gotten back from a spiritual retreat in North Carolina. And preparing for the football season, I had decided that I was going to follow a verse from the Bible that says, pray unceasingly. And so I made a commitment that I was going to pray and be connected to God for 24 straight hours. Okay, it was quite a naive kind of thing, but I did that. So I went outside and I was practicing in the hot sun, and I started praying. And about 3 hours into the praying, something happened. I suddenly could feel everything in creation was one. I could feel the trees, the grass, the ball. Everything was one, and it was vibrating. With love, you could feel the vibration of love in everything. And it was the most miraculous thing I'd ever experienced, obviously. It's like incredible. I would look at a tree and I could feel love. I could feel love coming from the tree. When I looked at my parents, I saw love. It was like the most incredible thing. And it lasted all day and all night. I was awake all night. And I woke up in the morning, was still there. And then the second day continued. I was out practicing and feeling this overwhelming universe, just feeling the universe, the love that was in everything, every blade of grass. That night, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept for a day, and I started to get frightened. And so I prayed. I said, oh God, take this away from me. This is too much. I've had enough. I mean, I love this, but, within about 10 minutes, it went away. But then my whole life, I began searching for what could bring you back to this experience. So I did Eastern meditation. I joined the Self-Realization Fellowship with Paramahansa Yogananda. I read his book. I joined that group. I started meditating. I did chanting, as you were saying. I learned chanting. I did different forms of chanting. I went to the healing school. And then I met this man who was a mystical Sufi. And he came to my house after about 2 years, and I became one of his teachers. And he came to teach, and boom, the same experience happened. I suddenly, once again, felt love. That one experience I'd had, 30 years earlier, 25 years earlier, I could feel love in everything. It was the most, and I began crying. I cried for 4 hours straight. And I didn't know why I was crying. I was just crying. I'm crying. And we had about 30 people in the, crowd around him, and a lot of people got upset and they left. I was sitting there crying. But it was the most wondrous experience. You could feel the love in everything. Everything was made of love, and you could feel it. And, eventually after about 4 hours, it stopped. And then I went to the holy man and the Sufi master. I said, well, what was going on? And he said, you were cleansing the debris from your heart, and you were connecting to the divine light, and he revealed himself. That this light is in everything. It's in everything is made from love. Everything's made from love. That's what he said. And so, since that time, I've been, doing the Sufi prayers, praying at night, getting up in the middle of the night and praying, doing these things. And it's wondrous. You feel this, your heart opening. It's like nothing I've ever experienced. And I didn't experience that in Christianity, even in my meditation years with the Self-Realization Fellowship. And from that, I take it that everybody has a path. My path may not be what your path is, So as Sufis, we think Christianity is right, Judaism is right, Buddhism is right, Zen is right, native religion is right. God moves in all these things. He doesn't limit himself to one religion or one method. That's what we believe. So we try to honor and revere all religions. And that's why in the book, I don't put religion that much into it. I talk about God, but I don't put religion into it because I don't want to turn people off, because I don't know what path of spirituality they're going to be drawn to, what's going to resonate with them. Maybe it will be Islam. Maybe it'll be Sufism. Maybe it'll be Christianity. Maybe it'll be Zoroastrianism. I don't know what it is. So we try not to judge and just say whatever, because we believe that the divine is in control. We're not in control. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that
Well, of
I want to
course.
share that.
I don't think I would be a spiritual podcaster if it would not make sense to me. We're doing a bad job here. And I think it's very important that we cannot repeat it often enough, that the divine speaks to us in our own language of understanding. And you found it through the Sufi practice. Some others find it in meditation. Some others find it in cleaning the rivers. Yeah. It's there everywhere. And you must just be lucky. And maybe, as you said before, maybe all those little things before meditation and all the things you did loosened up the corkscrew, and then puff, when you went to Sufism, it just came through.
Right. And I think that I was in self-realization fellowship for like 15 years, meditating every day. And maybe that was just what brought me up to a level to be in this next step. We don't know. I mean, life is a mystery on top of the mystery. But I think everything is, if you listen to your heart, that's what our main message is. Listen to your heart. Connect to your heart. Your heart will tell you. Your heart will tell you what's right for you, what resonates with your heart, One of the things that we talk about in the book is the way of the love, that how, because of these two experiences, I was led to this Sufi path, and it's known as the way of the love, that it really tries to get you to connect the love, not romantic love, but just general love to everyone. And people often ask me, well, how do you best describe the way of the love? And I say, and in the book, I talk about a mother's love for her child. A mother's love for her child. This is what brings you to your true nature. When you connect to that love. In Islam, we say Rahma, which is the womb. And in the Quran, every verse begins Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Rahman is the mercy. So it's, this mercy is the mother's love. So, we think that the way of the love, the way of the connect is to connect. When you think about a mother's love, it doesn't judge. It's unlimited. You can do whatever you want, and, a mother still loves you. There's a beautiful saying from How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a famous book. And then there's the gangster, and I don't remember his name, but there's a gangster, and he's killed all these people and done all this stuff. And they go and they talk to his mother, he's in, I don't know, something happened to him. The police were having a shootout with him. And he goes and talks to his mother. They interview his mother. She said, "Oh, my sweet poor boy, my little baby." That's the guy who's killed all these people. But that's the mother's love. She thinks of this man who other people see as a killer, but to her heart, he's dear. And so when you do this remembrance, you start connecting to this love. You begin to connect to it. And it's for me, it was transformational, but this may just be my path. For other people, it's something else. So you have to just acknowledge that. Everyone's led to a different way. Can't judge it.
But I think it's very important for the people to understand, even if they now want to buy and read your book and follow your work on a physical level, of a body level, of on the first layer of the onion. It's always so good to understand that no matter mind if they will ever use it, but to understand that there is an onion within the onion. It is so important to know that when we engage, that there is a broader background. I think it helps. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, once I had a guy who came to me, who had what's called atrial fibrillation. He was having an abnormal rhythm. Atrial fibrillation is where the upper chambers of the heart begin beating chaotically about 500 times a minute. And he was having racing of his heart, like his heart was going 180, 190. And he went to one doctor and they put him on drugs. He felt miserable. He went to another guy, they put him on drugs. He felt miserable. And so finally he heard about me. I don't know how he heard about me, but he called me up on the phone or sent me an email and wanted to know if I would work with him. I said, sure. And so, on the first session, we found out he's going through this horrible divorce, and his wife had left him for another man. And, he was inside, he was traumatized. And so through the session work, quickly in 2 sessions, we figured out, oh, this is what was really the cause of this fibrillation. And his fibrillation went away. And if I told that to doctors, they'd say, impossible. There's no way that doing emotional work is going to get rid of this heart rhythm problem. But it did. 2 sessions, got rid of it. It went away. And, I talked to him over the years a couple of times, and that, he would quit doing the remembrance technique for a while and it would come back, and then he would do it again and go away. So there's something about the heart connection that I believe is really critical to healing physical illness, as well as psychological and emotional illness.
Do you see any? Do you think it's just the way of the world that this is happening? Do you think that this is increasing over time as we live a more input life through online media and phones and so on? Do you see change, a shift as you're doing it for 30 years, or you think that's basically a condition that's there forever, and it's not time related or society related?
No, I think this is definitely getting worse. I mean, since COVID, there's so many people who are just there. We used to talk about it in medicine, like you'd have your level up here and your level of stress and frustration was down here. So occasionally it'd bump up and you'd have a problem. But now it's like this. The stress level is so high that people just go over the edge. We see all these killings in America and this kind of thing. People are just right to the point where they're at the breaking point. As you say, from the phones, the constant stimulation, the news is all negative, and I think that's why we're having this message. We're sending out this message because it's needed. People are suffering, they're anxious, they're nervous, they're stressed out. And by just doing 15 minutes a day of some spiritual practice, not even my spiritual practice, but just getting calm and listening to music, or they don't do that. So the world is just, as you say, it's just on a rapid pace. Everything's just more and more rapid. And so if you want to be healed, you've got to spend time giving to yourself a little bit in this way. A meditation's good. I think it's great. Listen to sound.
I would be very much
toning, and that I think that works great too. The bowls, the Tibetan bowls with those sounds, I love listening to those. Those will really calm you. It's amazing. So
I would very much like to hear your technical explanation. As you're a cardiologist and you've so much looked into this, I would be very interested in how from life stress, society stress, personal anxiety, how do this come to this manifestation? I would very much like to get some kind of your technical understanding of this phenomena, if you think it's valuable.
We have 2 nervous systems. We have the nervous system that we control with moving our arms, and then we have the nervous system that works behind it, that controls our heartbeat, and we call that the autonomic nervous system. Okay, the autonomic, it's the one that's in the background. Okay, and so read the Heart Math Institute's work. They have very good books that talk about this, and they have healing technique as well, non-religious, completely just scientific, the Heart Math, HERTMATH. And that nervous system gets out of whack. And, I have seen this in my own practice. A number of things will get it out of whack. For example, it used to be the people who used drugs. When they got put on treatment, their autonomic nervous system would be, they would come into the office with a resting heart rate of 120. their heart rate was 120 beats a minute, because they had been in recovery, they had been on narcotics, heroin, and things like that, and their heart rate would be, the whole system was, the illness had just entered the whole system. And we would put them on a medication called a beta blocker, which blocks the adrenaline, and so in the system, and that would heal them. That would get their heart rate back to normal, and within a year we could stop the medication. So you have that from all kinds of rheumatological conditions, rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune conditions, and COVID-19. In the midst of COVID, I would see 4 or 5 people a week, young people who would come in with a heart rate of 120. I mean, normal heart rate's 70, 70 to 80. And they would come in, their heart rate was 120 beats a minute, and they're tremendously fatigued. And now this is my usual cardiology practice, so I'm not doing healing work on them. I can't do healing work in a traditional practice. But they would come in, we would put them on this drug to control the rhythm, and then we would utilize colchicine, an anti-inflammatory drug used in various rheumatological conditions, arthritic conditions. And over the course of 6 to 12 weeks, they would be back to normal. It's long COVID syndrome. You've heard of that now. That's in the news. But we see that a lot now, that this illness puts the whole nervous system out of kilter. And many illnesses do that. But stress does it, anxiety, chronic stress, post-traumatic stress disorder. All of these things activate the autonomic nervous system to be out of whack. It's not balanced like it should be. You have racing of the heart, you have low blood pressure, you have a number of physical ailments. And the remembrance actually works very good for that. But, I don't teach that in my usual practice. People run me out of town. I did that, but I teach it online. I teach it, with these books. So trying to help people in that way so they don't have to use drugs, medication.
But it makes a lot of sense. That with this nervous system, that these kind of breathing techniques and chanting techniques definitely makes a lot of sense that might be effective in balancing it out. But then you said like the heart is clouded with these membranes and those things. So I can understand how the balancing of the nervous system through these techniques might work. That seems to me very logic in my brain. But then how these membranes get stuck to the heart so it can be freed. Can you dare a little bit give us some technical background?
Yeah, so the Sufis say, these mystical Sufis would say that, when you're born, your heart is completely clear, child,
Clear of memory. Clear of memory.
Why does the Bible say you must be as a child if you want to enter the kingdom of God, So, there's something about a child that doesn't have this clouded, polluted heart. The heart's been, but after you have people yell at you, you have, disappointments, you have bad things happen to you emotionally and physically, you hold on to doubt, you hold on to anxiety, you hold on to injury. And those things get pulled into the heart and cover the heart so that you're not connected to the divine light.
Are these memories in effect?
Are they what?
Are these memories in some way? I'm
yes,
talking
they are.
About memory.
Yes, they are. I have a novel coming out hopefully next year called The Gift's Curse. And I talk about a boy who has this ability to see into people's hearts. So yes, when we do sessions, if I did a session on you, and we learn as healers how to do this. We connect to people's heart. And what happens is that these bad experiences are kept in your body as short movies. Like when I did that session on that woman who had been sexually assaulted, what happened was that I connected to her heart and I began seeing the closet. I saw the boy and she saw it too. The memory came out like as a memory, as a movie. But when you pull that out and open it up, it dissolves. It takes out the emotional charge that had been hidden inside and releases it. And that's how the healing happens. That's what the Sufis would say, that there's 70,000 veils of darkness and light that separate us from the divine light that lives inside of us. And so you say, well, why veils of light? Why not just veils of darkness? Well, what Sufis would say, if you took away all the veils, suddenly the light of divine would be like a million sun, and you couldn't tolerate it. It'd burn you, So you've got good veils until you train your body, train your whole body. My sheikh said to me that when you say Allah, when you say the and you think of God, or you think of the divine light or the divine presence, whatever you want to call it, or Allah, Allahum. When you say that, they say that love enters your heart, and then the body pumps that love to every cell of your body. That's why it's transformational. You're basically pulling in light, love, and it's going through your whole system. It's going through your system. It's healing. Doing this for 30 years, you see how tremendous it is. But until someone's discovered it and done the work, they may not feel it. For example, in my book, I talk about Gabriel Aziz. He was a 30-something-year-old man who came to me with severe anxiety related to COVID. And he had always been strong. He'd never let illness bother him. And when COVID came, it unleashed it brought all these dark veils from the bottom of his heart, which were hidden and repressed, out. And suddenly he had tremendous anxiety and severe chest pain. And, he went to the doctor and the psychotherapist and all that, and nobody could help him. He couldn't be helped. So he came to me. He knew some of the people that I knew on the Sufi path, and he came to me. And what we found was that all of these veils were hidden in difficulty around his father, how his father had told him he was nothing and he'd never amount to anything, and they'd beaten him and different things like this. And so these were held as veils, and he had a strong dislike for his father, and by coming to this awareness, by doing the remembrance, those dark veils began to slowly melt. And he went from having daily chest pain every day, had severe anxiety attacks. And then it took about 6 months to a year. All the anxiety went away and the pain went away. Now, was he completely healed? No. This is a lifetime process, He wasn't completely healed, but he was 90% better. I still know the man. I still talk to him. And in the back of my book, I go through where he was just recently, in the last month. He's way better. He's not 100%, but nobody's 100%, but he's dramatically better. So, you have to continue working on yourself, because the veils have to be released.
Now, I'm becoming slowly the last quarter, and who knows my podcast, I always ask the same question, basically at this point, more or less. And what would happen if 20% of the American population would do what you do? How would it change the country? Would it change the world? And in which way would it affect?
Certain it would change the world, okay? Because when you have, it's like enlightenment. When you have people who are more enlightened, I often say, I think if women ran the world, we'd be a lot better place. Men tend to want, women like family, they like connection. This is what we need. The world is becoming disconnected. If we want to heal the world, the first thing is to heal ourselves. We can't heal the world unless we heal ourselves. If enough people become connected to their heart and feel love for their neighbor, for their friend, for a stranger, then the world changes. That's all that it takes, and it doesn't take the government and the people in power, that they're not necessary, It's when the people stand up, when the people say no to things that are wrong, hatred. When the people say no to hatred, this is what changes it. The people have to say it. And by connecting to your heart and finding peace, you will change how you talk to your neighbor. You'll change how you talk to your children, your colleagues at work. and it gets rid of the tension, I mean, if everybody knows that it's your birthright to be connected to this light. You're born with this. That's why the remembrance is so organic. You were meant to know this. It was programmed into your DNA. I have a book out called Your Blueprint for Lasting Stress Relief. And I talk about that, how this is programmed into everyone's DNA. I mean, it's like a mother's love for her child. Almost every mother loves her child, We don't know how that connection works, but it's a powerful love that can change things. That's what you often see in society. Women change things often, and men do too, but it seems more likely that women are the answer. If they connect with their heart and give that love out, I think it changed everything, completely everything. My suggestion.
Then the question is, I mean, Sufism has been around for a really long time, and a couple of times were crazily important in certain societies at certain junctures. Have we seen a place where this manifested? Do you know any historic example where Sufis were, ministers, Sufis were advisors at some point? Did we see a better place, a better world at some time?
My mother-in-law, my wife's in Morocco, and when I go to Morocco, I see that people it is changing there too because of a Western influence. But her mother came and lived with us for 4-5 years. You see the acceptance, the calmness, they accept what God creates. They don't try to fight it. And the whole society can be like that. And you see much more politeness and kindness and generosity. It's very amazing when I first started going to Morocco, how different it was from a Western culture, And there's practical things too, like they don't allow cursing on the television. They bleep it all out. They don't allow sexual scenes. So the morals are very good in this society because we know that morals are essential. So you change the moral. Now, they have their problems in that society just like we do, but when I go out and visit her mother's people, out in the countryside and become where they really hold the Sufi principles closely, they're at peace. Yeah, they have a hard life. They have famine, they have no rain, they have drought, but, they live at a different level. She once told me that they had drought and they lived for a whole year on carrot, nothing but carrot, and they said, all praise to God. He brought this to us and this is what we go through. So, they tried to change the situation. Sure, better farming practices, contain the water, etc. But the acceptance and the inner peace you don't find here. So, and it's changing there too because of Western influence, it's changing. But I think that inner peace is what you're looking for.
Well,
that's why the book,
the world.
Peace Now, Inner Peace Now, it's like you can find inner peace today. You don't have to wait months. Within a couple weeks, if you do the remembrance, you'll be different. If you really do it and connect your heart and follow the practice, you will be different if you really engage with it. You got to engage with it and commit to it, but you will be different. If you're not, send me the money, I'll give your money back, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's worked for everyone that I've used it with in healing. Maybe in the course of 20 years, one person or two didn't get better, but they didn't commit to the technique. They didn't commit to it. And the same thing's true of meditation. I think everybody who really meditates, it changes you. If you don't really do it.
But it takes more than a couple of weeks or months. That's the only big difference.
Well, I mean, this is stages, if you really commit to it and you'll feel something, listen to your own heart. I mean, when you really block out the world and you listen to your own heart and connect to your own heart, it's going to guide you. You're going to be guided to calmness and peace. That's what we've seen. I've got an audio tape with it. So there'll be audio tapes. There's a free audio tape on my website called the Heart Connection Meditation. If anyone wants to experience this technique and doesn't want to pay money, just go to my website, www.drkirklaman.com, and you'll see the heart connection meditation. It's a free download. You can try it if you like it. It's out there.
First of all the links and information are down there. That all the links and information will be down there, so people can definitely follow the link. But we have a couple of minutes left.
It's about a 40-minute guided meditation that will teach you the technique, the technique, as well as how to relax your muscles and things like that, breathing techniques designed to get you to connect your heart. We guide people into connecting to their heart. And trust me, if you listen to your heart at the middle of the night or late at night or early in the morning when it's quiet and you listen, you'll feel something or you'll feel peace. Some people don't get any messages, but even if you don't get a message, you'll feel connected to your own body. You feel connected to your deeper part of yourself.
Right. Well, we are slowly coming now to the end of the podcast, and I think we had a wonderful journey through the history, some of the history and some of the manifestation of Sufi, where this all, as you said, is coming from, and how you brought it and many others into the real world, into a modern world, cut, so to say, from the spiritual side as a really hands-on practice that makes people's life more better and more healthy. And maybe a last repetition, if you be so kind. So you read this book that comes out now, and you can do it by yourself. You can practice yourself. You maybe get some inspiration online to see how it's done. How long? You said couple of weeks, couple of months. So people would expect, just make a recap, 4 or 5 minutes, if you be so kind, at the closing of the podcast.
Of course, everyone's different. Everyone's at a different point in their spiritual journey. What I've experienced, though, is that I used to do seminars where we teach this technique at a seminar. And the vast majority of people felt it right then. They felt the peace. Right then. One session, one seminar, 4 hours, they felt it. You would guide them into their heart. Like I said, this heart connection meditation. We also have an audio tape that's coming out on Amazon that has the audio tape. But if you really connect to your heart and you try the technique, the vast majority are going to, you have to have an open mind and an open heart, but you will feel something. You will feel the peace. That's the goal, to get people so they're less stressed, more peace, just make their life better, so they're not running around and just driving the car into people or going out and shooting people, we need people who are calmer. We need people who are loving. This is what's going to help society. I want to thank you for letting me be on the podcast and share these messages. So I think it's people like you who are
I have 5 more minutes of your time, and I'm not going to let you go off easy. I have a bonus question. Please, one last one, please. You talked about the experience you had as a kid when you were once with the divinity. You talked that you later, one more time, in a Sufi seminar, were getting experience that one with divinity. I would like just to ask you a question. Do you think that some people can stay in this state of grace for, like some Sufis, some masters, for a longer experience of time, or you think it is always something that you can only take for a certain limit? And what would be an outcome if you longer stay in this connection? How would it transform you? Last, final question, but a bonus question.
There's no doubt that the Sufi masters, I had a sheikh before my current sheikh who was a master. That man knew your every thought, okay? He knew all your thoughts. So yes, you can stay into that state and be one with the divine and never leave it. We call that ihsan. There are people who reach that. My current sheikh has reached that. He said, I don't think or do anything except that God directs me, okay? And I know he doesn't lie. So everything he does is direct above the divine, okay? So yes, you can reach that state. If God chooses it for you, we say, inshallah, as it pleases God. Because, we're not in control of that God chose him. They chose that one. He chose me to come and share this, And I have periods when I do the deep prayer that I feel it every day. Does it last all day? No, I'm not at that state yet because I still have veils that need cleaning. It's a lifetime journey. But yes, there are people, and I have met them, who, I mean, my first shake, you couldn't be around them. You would have a question form in your heart. You go up and ask him, it's gone. Now, he already answered it. He already answered the question in your heart. Oh, and he knew every thought you thought. I had a good friend who lived with him when he came to America for 6 months. He said, it's so frustrating because the guy knew every thought he had. He walked in to ask him a question. Yes, it's okay. You can do that. How did he know that? I don't know. This is a spiritual journey. And I'm sure that I know from my Indian work with Self-Realization Fellowship that Paramahansa Yogananda was the same way. He was a master, He knew what you were thinking. He knew love like you cannot imagine. He never left that state. They say that when they buried his body, they opened his tomb like 7 or 8 months later, and his body had not decomposed. 7 or 8 months later. Maybe it's years, and that's true of Sufi masters too. They open their tomb, their body still looks like they're still alive. So there's something, they're different. These people are not like you and I, but you can reach this greater and greater if you commit to it, and it takes a strong commitment. You don't reach it in an hour or a week. Now, it's a lifelong journey. And surrender. You have to surrender to them.
That is a bonus answer if I ever had one. Thank you so very much. And thank you so much for coming.
All right, nice. Thanks so much. Tell all your listeners, thank you so much.